do I need to sell? Can I sell? Who will buy from me? Who will listen? Can
Yeah.
you talk to that a bit?
Yeah, definitely. So I do have like, as always, every time you ask me a question, Adam, I feel like there's like three, four things that go off in my brain. Um, but okay, so there's a couple of things that's probably helped me. One is just reframing what sales means to you, because I know that like for a lot of us, it's like, oh, selling is that used car salesman thing. It's like the it's being sleazy and slimy and everything, and like unfortunately it's gotten a bad rap, and obviously because these other businesses haven't done it any justice. But when I think about selling, I really think more about serving. For me, selling is more like, how do I give the best of myself? How do I give the best of my content? How do I give the best of all of that? Because hey, if people vibe with that, and they see value in that, imagine what it's going to be like when they actually pay me to help them, right? Like that. So for me, it's really more about serving. More so is like putting just adding value, building that tribe, adding value to them, and then and it's not like hoping that they'll pay. It's obviously you have to be intentful about the fact that I have a thing that I'd love for you to pay me for, but this is going to be like these are going to be all the benefits you're going to get from it. So that's kind of one. It's like the reframing from that perspective. And then I think the second thing is, and it really comes down to, Sarah, I don't know, A, what you sell, and then maybe B, what is holding you necessarily back. But I think one of the things that do hold us back is like that whole imposter syndrome thing. It's the whole like, how do I put myself out there, and have someone actually pay me for the thing that I'm selling? Like, I actually still, it's so funny because, we've been having, the chocolate, like a dessert bars, my first business, that opened over 8 years ago. And even still to this day, like when I walk into a store and it's like full, like with like people are actually sitting in, like I actually still sometimes stop and I'm like, I can't believe people are paying me for this stuff. Like, not in a way, not because it's like not good, like, because that's not at all, but it's just more like there's this almost this unbelievable, this surreal, feeling that you sometimes get that, like, wow, I am actually providing something of value. I'm actually providing something that people are going to want to pay for. And sometimes I think we get so caught up in this, like in that mindset of like, are people going to want to pay for me? Like, who am I to ask people to pay me for whatever it is that I'm selling or doing? Or it's so easy to get caught up in that. And that's what, like, and so if that is, I think that for me,
Yeah,
selling is
we
like being pushy and desperate. Yeah.
precisely. Sarah's
Yeah.
cheering.
Which is, I totally like, yes. And so maybe, Sarah, it's the way. Maybe if you're feeling like that, maybe there's a reason why. And we just have to reframe that and go like, how is it that you can more serve first, add value first, and then ask for, the sale, essentially, ask people to buy. But yeah, that if I go back to that sort of imposter syndrome thing, it is so real, right? For everyone. And obviously there are different levels of it. But really what it comes down to is like a couple of things. One, obviously, you have to believe in the thing that if people are willing to pay you for it, then yeah, there's a reason why. And then two, again, depending on what industry you're in, Sarah, if you're, for example, in service or coaching or anything like that, where it's you, that's, like they're buying into you personally, then the one thing that's helped me is like, because I know I'm a coach myself, and I definitely know that I don't have it all figured out. Like I don't, because otherwise life will be pretty boring. Like there wouldn't be anything left for me to learn, right? But the one thing, and the reason why I know people pay me for is so that I can be at least one step ahead of them, at least. Because if I can at least be one step ahead of them, then I know that they can learn something from me. I'm probably multiple steps ahead, to be honest, but like at least for you, if you can just be that one step ahead of that of them, then that's it. That's all you need. And your worth, like that one step is worth, the money. Like it's worth being paid for. So that's sometimes what helps me as well. When I'm like, but I'm not an expert, and I'm not, but I know certain things, and I know them well, and that's what people are going to pay me for.
Yeah,
So that's kind of how I reframe it in my mind.
it's fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Deidre. That was fantastic.
No worries.
So, um, I honestly, I can only agree with everything you said around that, like how you would, reframe this or focus elsewhere. So maybe for anyone else, listening or whatever, and around the sales, like if anyone wants to switch out of that sleazy, slimy sales
Mm,
fear, let's call it
mm,
that, because it doesn't mean they have that tactic.
yes.
Where can they turn? Like, do you have resources you would recommend, books or courses or videos even, if someone wants to cultivate that service mindset versus the sales mindset?
Yeah, so I guess I have a couple because there's a couple different. So definitely there's the adding value bit to it, but then there's also how do you also tell stories? I'm a big believer in storytelling in all of the content. And I say content, I don't mean like just an Instagram post, but like literally anything that you go out, whether it is a YouTube video or whether it's any lives or anything like that, like. I am such a big believer that you have to start with your stories because that is where you build the human connection. And when you can build that human connection, then that's when you and then you add the value. That is when the selling bit isn't actually. And I'm going to be honest. It might at the beginning feel somewhat sleazy just because of the fact that you're asking for money. Like, and there's no getting around it. Like at some point, you're going to have to ask for money. that's because you have to make sales. But I can tell you that it won't be perceived as being sleazy. So there's a difference, right? There's a difference between you feeling sleazy and then someone else perceiving you as being sleazy. And I could go into a whole other thing about perception too, but really quickly, like if someone does perceive you as being sleazy, by the way, it tells you more about them than it should about you, because we always react to the thing that we ourselves are most insecure about. So anyway, that was a side note. But yeah, so storytelling is, I think, like one of the fundamentals. So start there and then think about how do you add value. And adding value really is, we can all add value, and we all do every day in our lives. Like when someone asks us a question and we answer, we're adding value, right? So the only difference is that you're preempting some of those questions. So, so resources from a storytelling perspective. I love the book Stories That Stick by Kindra Hall. So she breaks it down really, really well. There's also a book called, I think it's called Brand Storytelling by Dan or Don. I don't know if you know the book, Adam, but the name escapes me. But there's a couple of books that I would highly recommend around storytelling. That's a great place to start about how to even like structure a story, no matter how long or short it is. And then you go into, I call it like you start off as being the pre-hero, because your hero or the hero of your story should be your customer. So really what you're doing when you're telling your stories, you're being the pre-hero. You're being the, hey, I know what you're going through. I know how you feel. I can connect with you because I've been there. I'm that pre-hero because you are the hero. And then I talk about the moment that when you flip into the guide. And so when you flip into the guide, this is when you then go into the value adds. This is when you go into the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many tips, how-tos, secrets, whatever it is, about how you were able to solve for that problem that you're talking about, right? So right now, your hero is facing a problem. They're in a conflict, and you are now their guide. You're going to be the one who helps them to get through that conflict because you've been able to yourself. As the pre-hero. I don't know if this is all making sense, Adam. Can you stop me and let me know if
It does. It does. I like it. I
okay,
think
cool.
Donald Miller, the story
Yes,
brand,
well, Miller, that's
right?
right. Yes,
So he goes into this in quite some depth, explaining the guide and the hero and the
yes,
hero's journey and all of those things, right? Yeah.
yes, exactly. So I've kind of adapted it a little bit for and created another framework, which is like, the pre-hero, because he doesn't. That's not a thing. I just made that up because it's kind of like you telling your story of when you were in your hero's shoes, and how you were able to overcome the problem or the conflict, and then when you flip into the guide, that's when you're now talking about how did you do that? And that's when you add value. That's when you start to add value. And so then once your customer, your audience, loves you because you've been able to help them, they know, like, and trust you, then asking for them to buy, asking for the sale actually becomes really natural.